Hello and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, and I'm the founder of Utrema. My sales manager, Matthew, has been under the weather. He has basically broken his leg. And so today I went on a tour of some of the grow shops in Liverpool on Merseyside, where he would normally be, out visiting customers, and we went together. I drove him round. I was his chauffeur for the day. Got to meet loads of interesting people and some very interesting people, some very interesting sights we saw on our tour of Liverpool. But what was most interesting in relation to the podcast was a conversation I had with a farmer on the way home, traveling back to the Midlands. And he is one of our carrot customers. We sell a lot of products into organic carrots here in the UK. And he also grows hemp for oil production, hemp for fiber production, and rhubarb, organic rhubarb. And he was telling me a story from last year that relates to hydroponics. And the price of the rhubarb has gone up, so he was investing in the rhubarb crop. But the people who provide the young rhubarb plants had noticed this, and they were all gone up in price. So he found one supplier that was really good value. It was like 40% of all the others. So he bought them a load, and I think it was like 10,000 plants, and they said it would be £6,000. Then 3 weeks later, these rhubarb plants have not been delivered. So he phones them up and he says, I'll phone you back in a minute. Anyway, this salesman's manager phones him back and says, we made a mistake on the pricing. It's now going to be 16,000. Or no, it's going to be a lot more than that, £30,000. It's going to be £3 a plant. So they were like, no way. And so what they did is they ended up buying the same amount. They bought seed equivalent to the same amount of plants that cost them in total 90 pence or £1, $1, which is crazy. And then they got a guy who's got a small vertical farm to grow the rhubarb plants for them into young plants that they could then plant out in the field. So far, so good. Everyone was looking like geniuses. In my business, I always say, never give the customer time to think. If you give them time to think, they'll find an alternative, and you've lost that customer forever. And, I say the same to suppliers. If you let me think, I'll come up with a way of not having to use you ever again if you don't supply me or you raise the price. And so never let a customer think. This customer had time to think, and they got a vertical farming system underway with the help of this collaborator in the local area up in Scotland. And they got all these plants and they grew them up, and they wanted to, the family that owns the farm, there was debate about when they should plant them, and it was decided that they should go in early. And so they planted out 80% of the plants. They didn't have time to plant out the rest, so 20% went into a polytunnel, and this farmer's wife was looking after them for a few weeks while they planted all the rest. So they planted them all in, and then 3 weeks later they had opportunity and labour to plant the ones that had been in the polytunnel. And what was interesting is that, and this is the reason why I wanted to do the podcast on this today, is that it was cut and dry. 100% of all the plants that were planted out initially straight from the vertical farm died, and virtually all the plants that had been in the polytunnel survived. And that is just a really dramatic lesson in how important hardening plants off, weaning them, is to transitioning plants from indoor hydroponics through to outdoor conventional cultivation in a hybrid growing system. So we talk about in micropropagation, weaning, getting the plants from that super sterile environment to an outdoor environment in micropropagation. That's super critical. That's the hardest part of micropropagation. And in vertical farming, if you're going to go from vertical farming and put those plants outdoors, again, it's going to be super critical. They're not going to be tolerant of any drought, any UV, any wind. It's just going to blow them to bits, dry them out. The stomata are going to be fully opened. The stomata are not going to have not learnt how to open and close properly. There's been no residual ABA, the stress hormone in them. And so this farmer's wife had put them in the polytunnel. The polytunnel, through polytunnels, you get loads of UV. She might have not watered them every day, so they get a bit of stress. They've got some wind movement, but they won't be ripped to shreds. And so they were, not by design, but they they were stressed and they were primed, ready for transplant shock. And so, fantastic example there of if you're thinking about, saying, growing strawberries indoors and then moving to outdoors, whether that's in cocoa or in the ground, or any sort of crop, always be really careful to wean them or stress them. Maybe it's a UV light in the grow room or something like this, but you really want to be doing that transition and really toughening them up before they go out. You don't want ideal conditions right up until the point they go out. So, a short and sweet one today, Hydroponics Daily, a real world example of transplant shock and how important weaning is for plants going from hydroponics to field cultivation. Hopefully my colleague Matthew will get better soon and he'll be visiting lots more grow shops in the UK and worldwide. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know what tomorrow's topic is going to be, but hopefully be a good one. We're going to be doing a lot of, I'm going to be painting the laboratory tomorrow for more microgreen and small propagation experiments. So that shall be fun. I'll be high on paint fumes by the time it comes to recording the podcast. So God knows what the podcast episode will be like. Thank you very much for listening today, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.